Welcome back to the studio. You're watching Eye on Africa here on France 24. I'm Shona Bhattacharya. Let's take a look at our top stories in this edition. And starting talks in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The government and the opposition are hammering out details on how to implement the landmark deal that could pave the way for the country's first ever peaceful transition of power. Prolonging the ceasefire, Mozambique's rebel leader Afonso Dhlakama has extended a one-week truce for another 2 months. Violence flared in 2016, more than 2 decades after the end of the East African nation's civil war. And fighting dengue through word of mouth. Prevention teams are taking to the streets of Ouagadougou to alert residents on what symptoms to look out for. More than 20 people have died from the virus since August. A first day of talks in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Officials and the opposition are hammering out the modalities of the deal reached in the last hours of Saturday. President Joseph Kabila is set to stay in power until elections are held by the end of 2017. A transitional body headed by veteran opposition leader Etienne Tshisekedi will lead in that time, but obstacles remain. For more, here's Laurent Berstecker.
Breaking the silence, DR Congo's ruling party issued its first official statement since a hard-fought agreement was reached on New Year's Eve.
The
presidential majority did indeed sign the agreement with reservations and is satisfied with it.
Yet many challenges remain. Several opposition parties still refuse to sign the agreement. A lack of consensus, the country's ruling coalition said, could prevent proper implementation of the deal.
The presidential majority will try to make sure that all of the Republic's political actors can be included in future procedures, especially members of the opposition and civil society who took part in the dialogue with the African Union but who didn't sign the agreement.
Talks on the modalities and application of the deal kicked off Tuesday under mediation by the Catholic Church. Remaining issues include choosing the method for appointing the body to supervise the transition and the members of the transitional government. Exiled opposition leader Moïse Katumbi has meanwhile hailed the landmark agreement and reiterated his intention to run for president after Kabila steps down.
Fleeing Gambia after threats to his safety, the head of the country's independent electoral commission, Alieu Momar Njai, is in Senegal. He left after Gambian security forces seized control of the commission and told staff to leave. Njai and his team declared opposition candidate Adama Barrow the winner of the December 1st presidential election, an outcome incumbent President Yahya Jammeh first accepted, then rejected, despite international condemnation. Canceling a meeting with his rival, Libyan war commander Khalifa Haftar was expected to meet Fayez Sarraj, the head of the UN-backed government in Tripoli. The rivals were to discuss the possibility of forming a national unity government and joining forces against the Islamic State group. But for that, Haftar says he needs arms. After a recent trip to Russia, Haftar told an Italian newspaper Russian leader Vladimir Putin promised to undo a UN embargo against Libya that would allow weapons to flow back into the war-torn country. Extending a truce in Mozambique, rebel group Renamo, which is also an elected opposition party, announced it was prolonging a 7-day truce for another 2 months. From his hideout in the country's Gorongosa Mountains, rebel leader Afonso Dhlakama promises his forces will not attack government troops or positions. Mozambique's 15-year civil war ended officially in 1992, but violence flared up last year, and thousands have been forced to flee.
In central Mozambique, a silent war is claiming lives. More than 3,000 people have fled renewed fighting between the army and Renamo, the former rebel group turned main opposition party. This young man arrived at one of the camps for displaced people after his uncle was killed.
There is war there. We can no longer live in our homes. Every day after 5 o'clock, we had to go sleep in the bush. It was no longer possible to stay, so we fled.
Most say they're fleeing violence committed by Renamo. The party opposed the Liberation Front during a long and bloody civil war that ended in 1992. But 3 years ago, the opposition took up arms again. They accused the ruling party Frelimo of breaking the peace deal and grabbing too much power.
Since May, June, there has been a sharp increase in the number of people fleeing from attacks by Renamo gunmen. We had to open 5 shelter camps.
Entire villages have been emptied. Outside the camps, more than 10,000 people are sheltering with relatives. But some displaced people contest the government's official version, accusing the army of violence too.
Sometimes the army beats the population, because when they arrive and they don't find anyone from Renamo, then they beat the people and say, "You're Renamo, because when we get here, there's nobody else."
Renamo says that people living in camps are too scared to denounce crimes committed by the army. And it accuses the government of trying to kill its leader, Afonso Dhlakama, who lives hidden in the mountains, surrounded by armed forces.
The political situation gets worse and worse. Our party representatives are being persecuted. They die every day. They have no shame. They do it in broad daylight. People get kidnapped anywhere.
Mozambique's displaced families just have to hope and pray for a better new year.
Symptoms resemble those of the flu, but dengue fever can be deadly. And in Burkina Faso, the virus has killed more than 20 people since August, and another 2,000 people have been infected. Authorities are launching a citywide disinfection campaign in the capital. Our correspondents Khalidou Si, Bengali Toure, and Emmanuel Landé followed outreach teams, getting the message out in Ouagadougou.
Masks, gloves, goggles. In Ouagadougou, these men are preparing for a large-scale operation, a door-to-door disinfection campaign to combat the dengue epidemic that's hit the country, starting with the homes of the first victims struck by the disease, like this woman who lost a relative.
We lost my brother-in-law. I don't think we originally knew it was an epidemic. We thought that a person was sick and then died. We only found out it was dengue fever after.
Every nook and cranny of every room is disinfected. Once this first step is completed, the day isn't over. On the other side of the city, vehicles begin an aerial spray. Escorted by security forces, the 4x4 spray clouds of a very particular insecticide.
We've taken every precaution to ensure that we have the right insecticide because these products shouldn't be used at random. International regulations must be respected and a number of principles must be followed. We have been assured that that is the case. We even brought the insecticide from another country and ensured that we had it in a timely fashion today.
Between 50 and 100 million people are infected each year by the disease, according to the World Health Organization. In Burkina Faso, it's already claimed about 15 lives since August.
The Warriors are committed to victory, but Zimbabwe's national football team will have to overcome significant hurdles to get to the Africa Cup of Nations final. The tournament opens on January 14th in Gabon, but Zimbabwe's Football Association is saddled with debt. A $60 fee went unpaid, meaning the players must train at a high school instead of the national sports stadium. The team's poor financial situation mirrors its ranking, but Coach Sua and his players remain optimistic.
Looking at names on the ground, yeah, we are the lowest ranked maybe team, if not the second from the bottom. But again, football is football. It's right attitude, right preparation that will make one maybe to be on top of the situation.
We want to prepare and go and bring the cup up if possible. You know, we're going there to fight, we're going there to make the nation proud.
And that's the end of this edition of Eye on Africa. There's more news coming up on France 24. Do stay with us.